Thank you. Wow, what a great introduction. I can't wait to meet that guy that he's talking about. It is so good to be with all of you today. It's such an honor to be here. And what a beautiful, wonderful church that you have. As I met with the board yesterday and we talked about all the different things that are going on here and discovering what a great team the church board here is. And yes. And just to know about all the different teams that are going on here and the fantastic music. I kind of just did my little two-step thing, but man, I was getting ready to go Unicostal on y'all. That was great, Cindy. Let's give the choir another hand. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, wow. So today we're looking at what's spooking you. What's spooking you? And I believe that we have a picture here that this comes from a haunted house where they're taking pictures of people while they're going through the haunted house. And so this is the real deal. I mean, look how wide open that girl's mouth is. Oh my goodness. And so what spooks you? What is it that creates fear in your life? What is it that creates anxiety or worry? What I have found is that anxiety, worry, and that kind of fear and distress really interferes with us being able to bring forth the presence of God as us. Now, in Unity, we have 5 basic principles. We have many principles, but we have 5 basic ones. And sometimes they're verbalized a little bit different ways. But the first one, and this is the way I do it, is that there is only one power. Only one. One power and one presence active as my life and as the universe, God the good omnipotence. I had a woman come up to me after a service one day, and with tears coming down, she said, "You've changed my life, Reverend Tim." Really? How? What'd I do? By saying that as my life. Now, it's all good, however you say it. In my life is what is sometimes called vessel consciousness, that consciousness, that presence is in me, and that's true. As my life is called verity consciousness, that we are actually the propulsion and the presence of God in action. We are that. As a 15-year-old growing up in a fundamentalist tradition, I had this amazing experience where I found out that, wow, there is only one presence and one power, and that means I am that. You are that. And that's our second basic unity principle. So you could say that there's only one power, and you are that. Okay? That cuts it down real basic. So, what's there to be afraid of? What's there to be spooked by? You know, we're leading up to Halloween. I love Halloween. I love the costumes. I love the candy. I love all the excitement. I was tempted to bring somewhat of a Halloween costume. I happened to tell Reverend Medora that as we were walking up, and she said, no. Anyway, maybe when I get to know you better, you know. I pushed the envelope. But what you are scared of is just a mask. It's not the reality. The reality, the absolute truth, is that there is truly only one presence. And when we get scared, we're getting caught up in the circumstances. Now, I am immersed in lots of different world traditions, and once in a while I will quote from them. And today I'll be quoting some from Jesus, who said in the Gospel of John, "Judge not according to appearance, but judge with righteous judgment, That is, don't base your life on how things look on the outside. Don't get all stirred up on the programming that has been placed in you by people who don't want you to excel or to exceed. Don't get caught up in all the things that people say you've got to be like. Stand in truth. Stand in the absolute. Stand in source. Stand in God. That's where we stand, not in the circumstantial. It's so easy to get caught up in the circumstantial. Fear can be paralyzing to a spiritual community, to an individual, to a country. And fear is an excellent way to control others. If you can make others feel fearful, then you can begin to manipulate and control them. So don't allow yourself to be manipulated and seduced and hypnotized into fear. Maybe some of you have heard what fear stands for. False evidence appearing real. False evidence appearing real. So I want to share a passage of Scripture with you. This is Paul writing to his mentee, Timothy, who is struggling with some of the difficulties of ministry. And he wanted to encourage Timothy. And so in 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7, he says, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind." We're not to be immersed in fear. If fear is crippling you, then it is sucking dry what actually wants to come forth as you. Do you realize that you are the presence of God in action? And God has nothing to do with fear. When I was 15 and had that unity experience of experiencing the presence of God and knowing that there was no separation, there was no sin, how could there be in God? I thought, wow, even though I'm experiencing this in my individual consciousness, there is no separation. There is no divide. There is no shame. That means that presence of God is seeking to express as each one of us in a unique and beautiful way that's never been quite seen this way before. Millennia have gone into the making of you. Millennia have gone into the making of you so that you can express the presence and power that is God. But that scares some people. I love all different kinds of faith traditions, and I continue to have close connections with, evangelical Christians and fundamentalist Christians, and maybe some of you are here, and I'm so grateful that you're here. Thank you for being here. I was talking with one of them one day who was wanting to challenge my beliefs based on Scripture, thinking that surely with the beliefs that I have, I must not know Scripture. Surprise! I do. And actually, that is the textbook for the unity movement. And so, I heard what she had to say, and I said, oh, yeah, you've got a good point. And do you know about in the Gospel of John where Jesus says, greater things, greater things. And he's talking about greater than the things he had done. Greater things shall you do. And so I said to this wonderful fundamentalist Christian, so are you doing greater things than Jesus? Because Jesus said you would. And they slowly started to back away. Because we are afraid sometimes of our light, of our power. I love this quote from Marianne Williamson. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. And she says, your playing small does not serve God or the world. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. We're not called to mediocrity. We're not called to just fade into the background. We're not called, I can do that. We are not called to just fade into the woodwork. We are called for excellence. We are called to express the presence of God, and God does not play small. We are here to live out loud. We are here to live with greatness and to express greatness and to express the greatness that is God. Because that is what you are. You're God stuff in a skin suit. All right? So that's what we are. We are grounded in the presence, and we are that presence. And here's one technique when we're facing some difficulty or some fear to help us to move through that and tap into the power, the presence, the source that God is. I had a staff member come up to me one day, and she was expressing, and she's a very positive, very, very spiritually grounded person. She may be watching. Anyway. Love you. And she was expressing this difficult situation in her life. Involved finances. Anyone ever get a little worried about finances? Okay. So it involved some financial stuff that suddenly blew up in her face. And I said, what if up? She said, what did you say? What did you just say to me? What if up? I want to teach you just a little bit about what if upping. Some of you may be familiar with it. Licensed Unity teacher Mindy Odlin talks about this in her book, What If It All Goes Right? A lot of us are taught to think, okay, what if it all goes wrong? What if this is a disaster? What if the collection agency starts calling me? And what if this goes on my credit record? And what if they haul me off to jail? And what if I lose my children? And what if I just die in prison? I mean, the mind can go crazy. What if up? Instead of what if downing, what if up? Because we know there's only one power and one presence, and that power and presence is all abundant, all health, all wholeness, all life, all beauty. And that is us. So when we tap into that through the power of our word, through the power of our intention, we begin to align with that divine purpose. It's like going to the bank and asking for a withdrawal when there's absolutely everything that you can access. So what if upping? All right, for example, being in a long line, Christmas will be coming up, and you may find yourself at some point in a long line. And I've found myself in long lines many times, and I've started to do what if upping. What if waiting in this long line is my opportunity to meet some wonderful people in this line? What if, as we begin to experience the joy of connecting and being with each other, it begins to be contagious and runs through the whole line? What if that travels all the way up to the person that is at the cash register, and that person, she or he, begins to feel that presence and begins to smile even though they've been standing on their feet all day with grumpy customers? What if that begins to spread to other lines and throughout the store? I've witnessed it. I've done this. Because that's the truth. It's already there. Ernest Holmes in Religious Science said, we're not trying to create something that's not already there. We are revealing what's already there because it's already there in the absolute. It's already there. So by what if upping, we're just tapping into that. And in the workshop this afternoon, which starts at 2, the workshop will go into more depth about changing our story, changing our lives. So if you'd like to come to that, we'll go into more experiential depth with this and other techniques. But it's a way of shifting our thinking, not only becoming more positive, but actually aligning with what is, aligning with the truth of our being. But someone may ask, what about those situations that are really, really traumatic? Because trauma does happen. Disasters do happen. I think sometimes in unity, we always are wanting to smile and be happy and all that, but sometimes there's tragedies in the world. Sometimes there's very dark things that happen in the world. And unity is not about just ignoring that and hiding in some cloistered fortress mentality and just affirming our way in the feeling, well, while the world goes to hell. I'm not talking about burning hell. I'm talking about the hell of fear, the hell of feeling separate, the hell of not knowing that we are that presence of God in action. I worked as a hospital chaplain for 28 years. I'm still a board-certified chaplain. And one of the areas that I worked in for 12 years was in psychiatry and drug addiction. And so I would lead groups and do individual counseling. And one of the areas in which I worked was called the Women's Treatment Center. In the Women's Treatment Center, all of the women who came into that program had been abused. All of them. And I was the only male to ever be asked to be a leader, a counselor in that group. And so I got the opportunity to meet wonderful, wonderful people who were dealing with very, very difficult circumstances in their lives, who often got caught up in a cycle of abuse and continued to get into abusive relationships. Many times they would become suicidal, which would lead to them coming into the hospital, or severely depressed. One of those, and I do have her permission to tell this story. One of those came to me in a group, but said, I'm not sure I should be in this group, because the name of the group was Spiritual Issues Group. She said, I don't believe in God. I don't think I need to be in this group. I invited her to come in. I said, I am not here to tell you what to think or what to believe. We are here to explore issues. She finally did agree to come into the group. And as we were talking, she shared her story. Her father was a minister. And every night in her bedroom, she would pray, God, don't let him come up and abuse me tonight. Every night. But nothing ever changed. And eventually, she said, well, one of two things. Either there is no God, or God doesn't care about me. In either case, I don't give a. And so she just stopped believing in God or caring about any of that. And so here I was, and that was when she was a teenager. And here I was working with her when she's in her 30s. And so in the group, I invited her, if she would consider an assignment, to write a letter to God. Do not censor it. Do not hold anything back. State everything that you'd truly like to state. And she says, well, I don't believe in God. Okay, make it to whom it may concern, or just pretend that maybe there is someone there listening, and just write this out and pour your heart out. And so she said, where were you? I was begging you night after night. What kind of sadistic are you? Where were you? Do you get off on seeing this happen to little girls? What is the deal? He just blew it out. We just embraced her with love and in the group. And I said, would you be willing to do a second assignment? Okay, what is that? Imagine you got a letter back. Yeah, I'm not even sure I believe in God. Okay, but let's just pretend. If you were to get a response, what would the response be? She did it. She came back to the next group and she said, I wrote my letter. Would you all like to hear it? Yeah, sure. And so it started out this way. My precious, precious child. Every time you were crying, I was there with you, crying with you. I placed you into His hands to take care of you, to love you, to raise you with love and support. And instead, He abused that privilege. That wasn't my will. I was there all the time crying with you. But I want to ask you a question. The letter went on. Somehow you have gone through the worst experiences that a person can go through. Somehow you've gone through hell several times in your life, and there's been something within you that has not ever given up. There's something within you that has always maintained hope. There's something within you that could never be destroyed, could never be killed, could never be defeated. I'm here to tell you that's me. I'm in you. I'm living here. I'm not ever going to leave you or forsake you. I have been with you all along, and I am that presence that is helping you to live and to move and never be defeated. Nothing can be against you. We were blown away. We were all sobbing in this group. And that's why she told me, you have permission to share my story. In case there are others out there who think they are less than, who think that they have to give in to fear, who think that they can be defeated. I want you to share my story. Never forget that you are the presence of God in action. You are the expression of that love, that light. There is nothing we have to be afraid of. We can release that fear because we are moving forward as the presence of God, individually, as a spiritual community, as the world. Let us not give in to fear, but be the presence of God in action. Thank you. Oh, I'm not done. That's habit. I'm used to sitting down, and Lisa's like, okay, so I'm going to switch this around just a little bit. Many times, denial is used to gently sweep away error so that we can really claim and stand in truth in the affirmation. Although a lot of times I will flip it around and do the affirmation first so that I can then sweep it out, just as Myrtle Fillmore did with her affirmation. I am a child of God, and therefore, and here's the denial, I do not inherit sickness. So claiming first that presence, that power, and then knowing, oh, based on that, this stuff doesn't even belong to me. So I'm just going to flip this around. So if we could first say the affirmation together. There is only one presence and one power. Therefore, I am the presence of God in action. And then the denial. There can be no one and nothing against me. Because when we're based in that presence and that power, we know nothing can truly stand against us.